another episode of the Raptors podcast. This is episode 4. I'm Justin Grooms. First of all, and I always want to say that I'm truly appreciative of the love, the feedback, the support that I'm getting. I mean, it's just something I'm doing, honestly, because I feel led and called to do it. And I'm hoping that something I say at some point throughout these episodes will impact some people, will have a positive effect, positive influence on people, wherever you are, whatever part, stage of your life, your personal journey, your spiritual journey, your relationship with God. I hope this impacts you in a positive way. It's enjoyable for me because I get to do something with these revelations that God is giving me. And he's been giving me a lot over the past 6 or 7 weeks or so. And so I'm trying my best to bring them to y'all. Now, this has been a difficult episode to kind of unpack and sit with. And people, some people who are listening to this will know some of the reasons this has been difficult, and I won't get into all those. But let's just say it hasn't been easy bringing this episode to you, right? But I have made up in my mind that I'm going to persevere and then I'm going to push forward in this endeavor and try my best to get out of my own way and allow God to use me in whatever way he sees fit. Now, at the beginning, when I started this, I said this is not necessarily a religious or spiritual podcast, and it's not. I mean, I talk about, you have to understand that where I'm coming from, everything that I do has some component of godliness, spirituality, because again, I am a spiritual being having a human experience. So the lens through which I view most situations in my life currently are through a spiritual lens, because I understand that my flesh is not in charge anymore. And that may not be where you are currently, but hopefully that's where you're trying to get to. And that's why I hope this can help you and impact you. But ultimately, the goal of this podcast is to help some people who are confused, who are seeking some sort of guidance, wherever you are in your life. The whole entire goal is to find people where they are and to help them. I write often, and I wrote this quote some years ago, and it's to this day, it's probably been over a decade ago, but it's one of the most meaningful thoughts that I've had, and I was able to record it in real time and write it down. And it's this thought, this idea, and this thing that I live by when I do things like this, is that there is a life in the crowd, and perhaps just one, who needs me. And if my voice finds its way to them, then my life has been worth the living. And so when I get frustrated, when tasks seem daunting, I think back to that quote and I push forward. So all that said, I'm going to attempt to give you something on this episode that's going to be helpful and impactful for your life, or at minimum, give you some things to think about and to consider in ways that you may have not ever considered them before. The last episode, called The Relationship Danger Zone, if you haven't watched that episode or listened to the episode, oh, by the way, part of the difficulty was with the camera setup. So we're not going to put this episode up on YouTube. It will just be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if you were super excited, which I don't know many people are, but if you're super excited about seeing my face in this episode, you will not. So hopefully you're consuming this somewhere where you just listen to the audio. But if you have not listened to or watched, because the last episode is on YouTube, if you haven't listened to or watched the last episode called The Relationship Danger Zone, I would recommend you go back and watch that, because again, I think that one, from a practical standpoint, can really help some people, particularly people who are in the age range, if I would say probably 30 to 45, right? I think If you're in that age range and you're single or you're dating or you're in a new relationship, I think it would benefit you to go back and listen to that episode, and then share it, provide me feedback, all that good stuff. If you are trying to provide me feedback, like through my social media channels, like if you're trying to DM me, I see a lot of DMs come through on Instagram. If you're trying to DM me on Instagram and we're not connected, like I don't know you, or even, especially if you're, some people are trying to DM me and not even following me, but if you are, we're not connected, I may not see those. I'm just being honest. So the best way to get my attention is probably to comment on a post or something like that. That way I'm aware. Maybe let me know that you sent me a DM. That way I can go check it out. So, but again, if you haven't watched, go back and watch or listen to all the episodes. But if you haven't listened to episode 3, go do that. I think it'll help some people quite a bit. Now, that episode, we talked about relationships as they pertain to humans, having a relationship with another human. What I'm going to attempt to unpack tonight is a relationship with God, what that looks like, some of the challenges associated with developing a real relationship with God, and obviously the benefits of having a relationship with God. I think all of us, I shouldn't say all of us, that's an overgeneralization, but I would venture to guess that most people who are listening to this consistently are seeking a deeper understanding or deeper relationship with God. If you're not, take that with a grain of salt, but hopefully you're in that place where you're seeking some sort of knowledge and wisdom and understanding. And what I think happens most of the time when we're seeking knowledge and wisdom and understanding, a lot of us call that revelation or revelatory experience, is that we want the revelation without the relationship. I'll give you time to write that down if you're taking notes, and then I'm going to say it again. We want the revelation without the relationship. Now, to me, it's crazy to expect that any being would enter into a relationship with you that is one-sided, one where you have not developed any rapport, you have not gotten to know the other individual. And then on the first hangout, or the first date, or the first time you meet up, you start to ask them to reveal their deepest, darkest secrets to you, give you the keys to the kingdom, give you all their insight, all their knowledge, and all their wisdom. And on top of that, you ask them to give you tangible things. Give me a house. Give me the wife, the husband, the kids, the car, the dream job, the vacation packages. But I don't really know you. I just heard that you do this kind of stuff for people. Like somebody down the street told me that when they talk to you, they get all kinds of things. So they pointed me in your direction. I want some stuff. Lay it on me. Let me get some of that stuff. Now, as crazy as I just made that sound, I believe that's how we sound when we come to God. We take that relationship for granted, and we do that because I don't think we truly understand the nature of God. And I'm not here to tell you and explain to you the nature of God, because I am still on my own journey of discovery about the nature of God. And I will be on that journey for the entirety of my life. If I ever get to the point where I feel like I understand God completely, I'll be terrified, because I just don't think that is possible. I read an article yesterday that astronomers had discovered a black hole in a galaxy that was 13.6 billion light years away from our own galaxy. 13. I don't know that many people can even really rationalize what 1 billion is, let alone 13.6 billion light years away. The size and scope of what God has created is mind-boggling. And that's why I said there's no way we can comprehend completely and fully in our lifetime on this earth what, who, where, how, why God is. We just know that God is, right? So discovering, and also I heard this too, which was interesting. I'm not sure if this is true, but I mean, it sounds like it. When you have a galaxy that's 13.6 billion light years away, someone said that there are more stars in the sky, in our galaxy and outside of our galaxy, than there are grains of sand on the earth. And that most of those stars have at least one planet orbiting around them. Now just think about that for a little bit of time. Don't think about it too long, because it'll give you a headache. But think about it for a second. What I just said, that there are more stars, a star being something equivalent to our sun, in the sky, in the universe, than there are grains of sand on the earth, and that each one of those stars has minimum one planet orbiting around it. So again, to calculate the size and scope of God is impossible. What I do know is that he's ever present, like an effervescent mist, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, always and forever, everywhere. But just because he's everywhere doesn't mean we invite him into our life and we really connect with him. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. What does that look like? How do you know when you're connected to God? And how do you start that process? So I think the first thing you do in the process of developing a relationship with God is recognizing that you need one. Even if you have one, maybe recognizing that it is not at the depth and breadth of what you want it to be. That's the first thing. Acknowledging that your relationship with God, if there is one, obviously if it's non-existent, you want to start one. But if there is one, that it can always be deeper and more robust and richer, right? I think that's the first thing. The second thing is figuring out how to move your conscious mind, your humanity out of the way and connect with God on the spiritual level, because God is not currently manifesting himself in the physical form that I know of, that I'm aware of. I haven't seen God walking around in person for thousands of years. Jesus Christ is no longer on this planet. And until he manifests himself again, I'm going to say that God is not present in physical form. He is present in spiritual form. That means that's how you connect with him, in spirit form. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Spiritual beings having a human experience. Hence the whole title, if you weren't aware, the whole title of my book, Wrapped in Skin, is to mean that we are spiritual beings, or to be a spiritual being having a human experience. So the goal, after you realize you need a relationship, is to figure out how to stop operating in your flesh and how to connect with God spiritually. And you can do that a number of ways. People do that through meditation. People do that through prayer. People do that through study. People do that through rigorous exercise. People do that through getting in nature. There's a multitude of ways that you can release your conscious mind from control and start to connect with God on the spiritual level. And most people do that in some way, shape, form, or fashion, even if they don't realize they're doing it. When people get intuitive thoughts, they say, oh, my intuition is telling me I shouldn't do that. Or my intuition is telling me I should call this person that I haven't talked to in years. My intuition is saying, stay out of that area. Don't go there. Whatever it is, your intuition is telling you that still small voice is God. The reason it's small, I believe, is because you haven't cultivated a relationship that allows it to be more robust and richer. And I'm not saying this from theory. I'm saying this from real experience. I've been connected with God in some way since I was 7 years old. I got baptized at 7, and I consciously knew what I was doing, but I wasn't spiritually mature, which is another conversation for another day, because I do think that kids are more connected to God than adults are. But I don't have time to unpack that on this episode. But I wasn't really fully aware what it meant to give my life to God. But I started to develop a relationship from that time. Now, over the course of my life, I heard God clearly in some instances, and sometimes I didn't hear him at all. And other times I kind of heard God and kind of got an insight as to what he would have me do in certain circumstances. But I wasn't sure. There was like static in the line. It's like you're in a bad area, so you can kind of hear the person, but it's cutting in and out, right? And that happens to most of us when we are out of alignment with the will of God, when we are doing things that are, when we're operating in our flesh and we're not operating from a spiritual standpoint, when we have not allowed our spirit to take control of the wheel, and our spirit is relegated to being a passenger in the vehicle, okay, and not actually the driver. Once your spirit becomes the driver and you get out of your way from a fleshly standpoint, from the humanistic standpoint, then you start to hear more clearly. And not only more clearly, but the revelations come quicker and often and more consistent. So that's from experience. I'm telling you this from a place of experience, because I haven't always been there. And I've been in places where I was, again, crystal clear on what God would have me to do. But even the times where I was clear on what God would have me to do, I didn't do it all the time because I didn't trust it. I didn't trust that it was God's voice. Heard it, not audibly, felt it, but didn't trust it. And that, again, is because the relationship was not rich enough. I mean, you know, people, you got a relationship where you got colleagues, you got business associates, you got friends of friends who, if they tell you something, you heard it, but you haven't developed a relationship that's deep enough for you to trust what they're telling you. So even when those of us who hear from God in certain instances, if we don't have a relationship that elicits a deep trust, then we start to second guess what we heard. Okay, so which brings me to this idea, this concept of fasting, right? Fasting for me, when I was growing up in the church and even as a very young adult, was basically a religious concept. Something that we did at the beginning of the year. Most people did like a 21-day Daniel fast because the church was doing it as a collective. You know, it was going to be a corporate fast. Everyone in the church was going to go on this 21-day fast, and it became a religious practice. And most people who are, and we're getting towards the end of the year now. Can't believe it's already the end of 2023 going into 2024. But most people are prepping for New Year, New Me, New Year resolutions, all of that good stuff. And along with that comes the corporate fasting process. Now, I'm not knocking anyone who does a corporate fast, but I would say that most of us have no idea, A, why we're fasting, and B, what we should fast from. And if you're doing it out of some sort of religious practice, I venture to say you're not going to get the results that you desire. And so the principle of fasting is important for many reasons. I mean, it instills discipline. It kind of bolsters your faith. It gives you something to do as a collective, as a body, right? A body of Christ, a church family. It gives you that thing to share in and to grow in your relationship with people who go to your church and who are in your community or fasting with you. But what I think fasting is for primarily is to help you remove stuff from your life that is impeding your ability to connect with God. because it is taking up space, energy, and time. And so if you're not removing something from your life that is indeed doing those things, taking up space, taking up energy, taking up time, if whatever you're fasting from is not checking those boxes, then what are we doing? And what are we doing here? Because I believe that the whole reason that we should fast is to eliminate distractions and eliminate things that, so we can make room for God. Fasting to me is equivalent to spring cleaning, right? You're getting rid of some old stuff that no longer serves you, so you can introduce some things that are fresh, new, and that serve you better than those things you got rid of. And so if you're getting rid of things that aren't really even taking up space in your life, like for me, if I fast from food, I'm pretty much into health and fitness, and fasting from food is not a big deal. So if you tell me, I can't eat bread for 21 days, I don't eat bread now. If you tell me I can't eat meat for 21 days, I've gone 6, 7, 8 months at a time without eating meat. If you tell me I can't smoke, I don't smoke. So that's those things that people fast from. Normally, if it isn't costing you something, you're probably not going to get out of it what you want. I believe that fasting is a sacrifice. It is costing you something. It is something that's difficult for you to give up. And it's you telling God that, God, I want a relationship with you so bad. I want you so badly that I'm willing to give up these things that I desire in my flesh in order to have a relationship with you. You're pouring out to be filled up. If you're taking notes, write that down. You're pouring out. Fasting is pouring out to fill up. Pouring out to fill up. So if you're doing this 21-day fast, if you're about to start fasting, about to think about it, if you never fasted, you're considering it, you don't know what this whole concept of fasting is. Think of it that way. Ask yourself, what is it that is taking up time, energy, and space in my life that is not doing me any good, that is doing more harm than good, and that is affecting my ability to connect with God on a real, deep, interpersonal level? I think that's extremely important. So far I've been talking about how to develop a relationship with God, the things that you can do to start to walk down that path to develop a relationship with God. The final thing I want to talk about is how you know when you have established a relationship with God. How you know when you've not necessarily arrived, because I don't think you ever arrived, but fully. I think relationships with God can always be richer. And I don't think we have enough life to live to get a deep enough relationship with God. But how do you know when it's real? How do you know when that, I ask my homeboys, like, yeah, they'll introduce me to a girl and they say, this is the girl I'm seeing. How you feel about it? Is it real? Like, man, I don't know. We're still figuring it out. We're still getting to know each other. And then about, 2-3 months later, say, are you still with a girl? Yeah, we're good. How do you feel about her? How's it going? Man, I think it's going well, man. I think she may be the one. And then you see him a little later, and God willing, hopefully everything is still on the up and up. And my boy says to me, yeah, man, I think I'm gonna ask her to marry, because he is confident that he's established a real relationship. With God, sometimes it's not that clear, right? So I want to kind of unpack, how do you know? And as always, I want to talk about my own personal experiences of revelation. The way I know or knew that my relationship with God had been strengthened and had started to become solidified is because my appetite changed. Like, it's going to be hard for me to explain in the next few minutes, but my appetite has changed so much over the course of the past 5 or 6 years. The things that I was interested in, and not just interested in, I mean the things that I hungered for, that I thirsted for, that I thought I wanted, that I desired, I thought I needed in my life, I no longer have a desire for. Now, when I was developing my relationship with God, I used to make conscious decisions, or try to make conscious decisions, that I wouldn't do certain things. I wouldn't participate in certain things. I wouldn't go to certain places. I wouldn't hang with certain people. But as you know, the flesh gets weak. So if you're consciously trying to not do those things, mentally, sometimes we get weak and our desires take over and they override our conscious thought, right? So that went on for years with me, where I would try to make conscious decisions, but inevitably I would fall off and I would backslide, or I would do certain things that I knew in my heart that I shouldn't be doing. And so, but what has started to happen as I began to seek God more rigorously, meaning I started to really spend time sitting in silence and searching for him in the darkness, and searching for him in my solitude, and embracing the fact that I needed to be alone in order to connect. I needed to be, and that's even me saying that sounds counterintuitive, but the person, the entity I was trying to connect with, again, is not here in physical form, but is in spiritual form, ever present, always around. And so I needed to get into a space where I was free of distractions to really start to connect. I started to fast, started to read more, started to meditate more. And before I knew it, not only was I not doing those things that I knew didn't benefit me, I no longer had a desire to do it. So it went from me having to make a conscious decision daily not to engage in certain things or be around certain people. It went from that to me being like, I just don't want to do it. Like, I don't have any interest in it. It doesn't tempt me as much anymore. And so that's how I knew, oh man, this relationship is getting strong, because what was happening was God was replacing my desires and my will with his desires and his will, because slowly but surely I was inviting him in to inhabit my life. And his presence was beginning to merge with my spiritual being, and we started to walk in alignment. Now, that is a consistent, ongoing process. And the moment you it's like any relationship. And you can listen, any of my exes out there listen to this. This is an opportunity for you to recognize that I have grown. I promise you, I have grown. Because any relationship, and I've learned this, that you're not constantly cultivating and constantly going through checks and balances on, will get weak. So just because a relationship was once strong, you can't think that you can take your foot off the gas and it remains strong. It is a daily cultivation of a relationship. So I said that to say that even to this day, even though I know what it feels like to have a relationship with God, there are days and moments and times where the relationship has weakened because I haven't put forth as much effort as I needed to. So where I'm at now is that I'm keenly aware of the sort of practices and activities and things that I need to do in order to continue to develop and cultivate that relationship. And when the relationship is strong, I have no doubt when I'm hearing from God. I have no doubt what God wants me to do. I have no doubt why he wants me to do certain things. And I have no doubt that I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. Fear has no place when you know that God has motivated you to do that thing. It may seem like it's impossible. It may seem like the cards are stacked against you. It may seem like there's no reason for what you're doing. But a relationship that is built on trust and understanding will override fear every time. When I was a kid, I blindly listened to my mother's instructions because I didn't know about the world like she did. And so when she told me certain things, I believed that she was telling me the right thing because she had more experience and knowledge and understanding of the world than I did. And so if I believe that about my mother, how much more must I believe in the creator of all that is and ever was, that whatever I'm getting from him is truth. And it is to be done, and it is to be done without fear. And no doubt that whatever needs to manifest or be resulted from that will happen. It may not happen in my time, it may not happen in my lifetime, but it will happen because I can't see tomorrow. I can just see today, which means I get revelation, I get instruction, I muster up the courage to do it, and then I move on to seek the next revelation and the next instruction. And so what I'm encouraging you to do, if you're still listening to this, is to develop a relationship with God. Really develop a relationship with God. If you feel like you have one, your goal is to work on deepening the relationship with God. And then once you develop a relationship, or once you deepen your relationship, trust it. Like, trust what is happening. Trust the revelation. Trust what's manifesting in your life. Trust when you start to not want to do certain things like the way you used to want to do it. Trust when you don't want to be around the same group of friends that you've always historically wanted to be around. I heard a pastor say this a couple Sundays ago. Said that he used to smoke weed a lot, and he still talks to people who smoke weed. And the reason he can still talk to people who smoke weed and hang around people who smoke weed is because he's no longer operating out of his conscious mind to make a decision not to smoke weed. He doesn't have a desire to smoke. He doesn't have an appetite for it. And he said because he was smoking weed to mask or cover his anxiety. But as he has developed a relationship with God, God now covers his anxiety. So he wasn't smoking weed because he enjoyed it. He was smoking weed to relax, or to not be anxious, or to be able to think, or whatever you're doing it for. And this is not to bash weed or anything. Listen, do what you do. That's you and God and your relationship with God. I'm not a subscriber to telling you what you should and shouldn't do from a quote unquote sin standpoint. That's not what this podcast is about. That's not what I'm about. So, but you know, as well as I do, if you're doing something that's detrimental to your well-being, it's either detrimental to you mentally, physically, or spiritually. And if it's not, more power to you. Keep doing it. But whatever that thing is that you know from a rational standpoint that you shouldn't be doing, when that relationship with God gets solidified, your desire to do that thing that's detrimental to you will start to diminish. And over time, I believe it will disappear. Okay. So, I love this. I love these conversations. I know I realize this is like a monologue, not really a conversation, but trust me, I'm going to have some people on to have some conversations with me. A couple of brave souls who want to come on and talk to me about it. And I think also I'm going to do more of these just audio because God has kind of revealed to me that that's what I should be doing. But also, sometimes when you're worried about lighting, camera, and all that stuff, it takes away from just the pure content. And all I'm interested in, and I promise you, if only 2 or 3 people listen to these episodes, those are the 2 or 3 people that I was intended to, that I was supposed to talk to. And I'm only concerned with doing a again what God has revealed to me and has entrusted me with, believing that I have the ability to articulate his message the way he wants me to do it. So as always, I appreciate every single person who is listening to my voice. Again, share, comment. If you happen to be watching the YouTube and we continue to put videos up, subscribe to that. But above all, as I always say, remember that, for this time, while you are wrapped in this skin, you will be, if you choose it to be so, the very best of God. Y'all be blessed. Love y'all. Take care.